present because I made some pretty slides for you. So yeah, as I said, I'm a complete like self-help book junkie, which is kind of, I don't know, it's hard to admit, it's a little silly. Honestly, I think a lot of them just they're very repetitive. They don't offer really practical tools, but this woman is really fantastic. Molly Fletcher she's called the Jerry Maguire of the sports world, the female Jerry Maguire, because she's a sports agent and she's been doing that for a long time, since before it was, very common to see women. So she's written books on negotiation, but she also just has had such a lot of stressful situations and jobs, and she has 3 kids. So that's what inspired her to write this little book, which I think is great. And it reminded me of research that I had read years ago in McKinsey, I don't know, some kind of McKinsey insight thing on what drives successful female leaders. And I was really struck at the time that they had these 5 bubbles, and you kind of seeing it crop up again. One of them might be like working in an area where you find meaning and purpose. Another would be positive framing, making sure you have a positive frame around meetings, issues, what you're working on. But it also included this bubble on managing your energy, which I thought was really incredibly helpful to acknowledge, and particularly in a female context, to say that, women in particular have more ups and downs maybe than men. And you don't have to fight against it. You can actually learn about it and work with it. And it really talked about minimizing things that deplete you, engaging in restorative activities, and trying to achieve flow, right? And that you get energy from that. Because I always thought that the winners, right, in our professional circles were people who were just energizer bunnies, right? Who could just outwork the rest of us. And that's not necessarily true, because we have these natural ups and downs. What we're going to talk about today is figuring out how do you schedule really around the recognition that you have those ups and downs, and then maximize your energy on that basis. So here's the point. This is why we do it, right? Because we can have the greatest impact when we show up ready to engage, and we can only be ready to engage if we have enough energy for those moments, right? We can't get the results that we want if we're unfocused or if we're distracted. If our tanks are empty, we're not going to be able to do the meaningful work. And really, if we can't inspire others, we can't inspire others if we don't feel uninspired ourselves, which is what happens when we feel very depleted. And she puts this, this another way to think about it. If you think about just mechanical things, and we have this argument in our house all the time. My kids are always trying to turn up the heat. My husband's like, that's fine in small bursts, but you got to worry about the equipment. You don't want to keep it on high all the time. And that's kind of like our machinery as well, right? The cooling down time in between bursts of energy is what we really need to avoid burnout. So she talks about adopting a different kind of mindset around this. So we already know, I think most of us already know, that being busy, a high level of activity does not equal productivity. And there are already too many demands on our energy, too many things we have to do and we commit to do when they pop up on our schedule, and it threatens to rob us of our energy. So according to Molly, she says, let's reframe the passage of time as an investment in our energy, right? And you can guard your energy for what matters by thinking about it in this it struck me as a little bit brutal in a way, but it's helpful to say, does this person, does this meeting, does this activity deserve my energy, right? And if you ask yourself that, you may actually decide not to do things that deplete your energy, which is kind of the point of this whole exercise. And some of us are better at this than others. Some of us are kind of quick to acquiesce to requests. But if you keep this mindset that it's not just your time, it's your energy, that will help. So in a practical sense, what she says we should do is an energy audit. So this is an actual exercise to look at where you gain energy and where you lose energy. So this is the exercise, and we're not going to do it together today, but I encourage you to do it after this meeting at whatever point over the weekend, maybe after it snows, to really look at the greens, the oranges, and the reds. So the greens are the things that activities and also interactions with people that energize you. The red is obviously interactions and work product and all those things that deplete you. And then there's this really interesting category in the middle, which is all the stuff that you need to do that's part of work life, checking email and whatever staff meetings, but other things these things don't necessarily increase or decrease your energy. They're just things you have to do. And she offers a strategy for how you handle those activities so that they become kind of a way of increasing opportunities to work in that green zone. And then she stresses to make sure that look at these things in your personal life as well as your work life. So kind of actually make a list of what these things are. So this is kind of the money slide. And this is directly, I replicated it from her book. So I want to be really clear. I'm probably violating all sorts of copyright laws, but this is Molly Fletcher's chart here, and I'm going to describe it. So we know that we derive benefits, right, from activities that energize us, right? We achieve a higher level of focus. And I know for me, if it's something that involves coworkers that I really enjoy working with, that helps me feel inspired and connected and productive all at the same time. These orange things, they're not all bad. I mean, they're just things we have to do, right? But they don't necessarily inspire us, right? They don't give us energy. And we may not feel fully present when we're doing them. And in a worst case scenario, we might actually start to feel apathetic toward those things. I think of things like, I don't know, a staff meeting, for example, if you're not fully engaged, it can actually sort of turn into a red when it should probably be either an orange or ideally a green. So, sometimes your mindset toward these things, and if you're feeling apathetic about it, it can slip from the orange to the red. The red things obviously are the things that drain us of good energy, but worse than that, they can really make us feel frustrated. And sometimes disconnected, scattered, emotionally drained, and that can also really detract from your ability to stay in the red. So the strategy is simple. Try to maximize, simple in concept, right? But not maybe simple in execution. So the idea is you maximize the greens. Can you schedule more of them in your life? Could you acquire a portfolio that inspires you? Could you work out more regularly because that makes you feel really good because of the endorphins? So, and in general, do a gut check. Are there enough greens on your calendar? Like if you mark up your calendar and you see a red, that's kind of a signal that maybe you want to be thinking about doing things a little bit differently, maybe with different people, different job, whatever it is. The strategy for the oranges, she says, be efficient. So there are ways to, automate, maybe delegate. Some people have systems where they only check their inbox twice a day, for example. Maybe you can't do that, but it doesn't have to be just a physical means, but she stresses that it can also be some mental and emotional strategies. So, again, if you engage more positively in a particular exercise, then you can actually move that from a red to an orange. So sort of your outlook toward things can be a way of being efficient with the oranges. And then, of course, the reds, she wants you to try to eliminate. And if you can't eliminate, then manage them as best you can. I think for a lot of us, the reds are not necessarily going to be primarily physical, although maybe in some cases they are. Maybe you travel a lot, for example. Maybe they're going to be more emotional. And so there are some hard decisions here about how you work around encounters and activities that really cause unnecessary negative emotional energy. So it's not just physical, but a lot of it can be emotional. So how do you pursue these strategies? This is what she offers in the book. In part, I'm going to show you in a minute, a calendar and how you actually do this on your calendar. But sort of what I just described was that maximizing your energizers means making them a priority, right? Protecting them on your schedule. Maybe even placing them strategically on your schedule. Like if you're a morning person and you love to run, then make sure that you put it on your calendar and you guard that on your calendar so that is the way you start your day. So maybe you schedule coffee with a friend, or maybe it's as simple as a 1-minute meditation break. Maybe it's breathing exercises. I did what you're not supposed to do. I traded my airline miles for an Apple Watch, and I'm actually really loving it. And so but my husband's laughing at me because Like it tells me to stand up and I stand up. It tells me I need to be walking more and I do it. It actually like pings you to meditate, and it like has a haptic so that you can, breathe with it for the 1 minute. It's kind of cool. So anyway, the point is pay attention to either scheduling energizers or, slipping short burst of energizers in on your schedule where you can. Maybe it's even a walk around the block after a rough meeting. So then again, the oranges, be more efficient. So these are processes, and it's hard. I mean, everyone's going to kind of need to decide for themselves how you either minimize these, or maybe it's making sure that, if you're in charge of staff meetings, maybe there's stand-up staff meetings for 10 minutes instead of a routine hour. I mean, there are things you can do when you look at these things to try to make them more intentionally efficient so that you have more time for the green is the idea here. And then this is the toughest one. This is managing, the stuff that drains you. Can you actually eliminate the activity? Can you eliminate this energy drainer from your life? It might even mean making like a really significant change. And I don't want to suggest that all of these energy drainers are necessarily negative things. I'm actually an introvert. Maybe it doesn't appear that way all the time because I fight against it. But when I do presentations, it gives me like a burst of energy and then I'm fully drained. And I teach. I teach at Georgetown. I've been doing that for 17 years. And I teach at night. So I'm already kind of tired before class starts. I know that like after a 3-hour class, there's no way I'm going to get more work done. Like at 9 p.m., I'm often opening my laptop and doing my work. But if I teach on those nights, it's very unlikely that I'm going to have the mental fortitude at that point to do it because I'm so drained from that activity. So what I do is, I try to avoid making sure that I've left something that night that has to be done after class. I give myself an hour break before class to make sure that I'm just, re-energizing, refocusing, putting the day aside. And this isn't, I'm not really sure on my calendar. I guess it would be a red, but it is an enormously gratifying and positive thing. So it's not to say that the energy drainers are necessarily negative things in your life. It just means that you have to find a way to work around them in your schedule so that you've built up enough energy to handle them. And maybe you add some green after them, knowing that, you're going to be pretty depleted after that. These are just sort of, thought starters. Again, just to reiterate, it can be a relationship. I mean, sometimes, there are conversations with certain people that are gonna maybe not be uplifting, I guess is the kind way to put it. It could be a physical drain. Those of us who travel a lot, it gets harder as you get older, that's for sure. And maybe it's a matter of just making sure that you don't have something really intense, at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. the next morning after a big work trip. And try to find the space on your calendar to do that, knowing that you need it physically and mentally. But I love the fact that she also lists here that it can also be distractions that just aren't serving our purpose and that are taking us off course so that we're taking energy away from the things that we want to be putting them against. And so that's why she also says, in order to really do this well, you have to get really clear on what's important to you personally and professionally, because otherwise you might end up managing your schedule around the stuff that really doesn't matter to you personally, doesn't matter to you professionally. So that's a big piece of this. Now, this is not part of her book, but I love everything space. So I love the concept that, the universe is made up of energy and that there's this thing called the law of attraction. So all around us, there's a whole lot of noise that we can't control. And we know that there's stuff on our calendars. There's just, I don't know, over the holidays, we had a pipe burst. And so now the renovation in my basement has gone to pot because we had to pull all of it up. Okay, you can't control that, but you can control your reaction to it. And I love this concept of the law of attraction, which is that if you focus on the things that you can control and the things that make you feel good, the stuff in your portfolio that you love, working with coworkers that you love, you will in turn attract what makes you feel good. There is sort of a natural, it just works. So keep that in mind. And that will also incentivize you to kind of get off your plate the stuff, especially in your work life that is not making you happy, that's a real drain. Okay. There are some other sort of concepts before we get to the calendar and almost to the meat of it. And there's one slide that shows you how to do this on your calendar. But if you're going to acknowledge, right, that you have these ups and downs, then you should be gentle on yourself, right? You should figure out how to minimize distractions from what is the good, deep, fulfilling work. And this is something a lot of us really, really struggle with. But man, when you're in the flow and you really like what you're doing, no matter, you don't even notice that you're working, right? So it's not a drain on you. And the other thing here is that, you know, the perfectionism that we all suffer from, that in and of itself will absolutely drain you. So just keep those in mind as you work on managing your calendar around this. And as I said, I'm just a big fan of breathing. Slow, controlled breathing. It can, you know, calms your heart rate, and it can actually change your energy, change your well-being, change your mindset. I have even done this like in the middle of a meeting. If I said who this was, you would totally all know, but I had somebody who was really jumping down my throat, and I just wasn't noticeable. I just took a full minute and just breathed. And it like completely allowed me to reset, just reset. You don't have control. I'm in control of my emotions. Now, how are we going to deal with this? So, you know, in the middle of a negotiation, it's not noticeable. So yes, you could go sit in your office and, you know, do your full meditation, but you don't even have to. You can do it pretty much anywhere you are, where you're standing. Sometimes, you know, standing in line at the grocery store, you can do it anywhere. So I'm a big fan of breathing. All right, so here's the last slide. This is the game changer, and this is how you translate all of that work into your calendar. So here are the three. I've sort of distilled her book into these three strategies. You can actually, you know, color code your calendar. You don't have to like physically do it. I haven't been on Apple for a long time. I haven't been on Outlook or other programs for a while, but you know, I can when I schedule things, I can turn them colors. So you could actually do this with your calendar, and start with kind of an audit just to see how would you characterize those things on your that are on your calendar today, this week, next week, and are they green? Are they orange? You know, are they red? Or I don't know. Some of these things I just sort of left in gray because maybe they're not necessarily oranges. They just sort of are. And that's fine too. But the trick is to sort of color code this and figure out what it just looks like as a pure visual. You know, are you seeing a lot of reds pop out of you? Are there not enough greens? Are you sort of being strategic about trying to have a green after a red? And then the key is to, you know, protect your schedule, essentially protect those greens. And that's not easy to do. I mean, I had someone email me right before this started and said, "Oh my God, it's a client emergency. I can't join." And that's understandable. It's a client that just is what it is. But man, I mean, if, you know, like if Tom Brady were coming to town and he was going to come give a presentation to WIT, I guarantee we'd have like all 700 WIT members. Like everyone would protect their calendars for something like that. So you can do it. You absolutely can do it. The idea is to adjust your schedule to protect those green zones, and then try to figure out where you can eliminate the reds, or, you know, anticipate the reds, right? Give yourself space before and after, really. Like I said, like if here I have on here, deliver public presentation, maybe that's a green for a lot of people because they get, you know, they love speaking in front of crowds. For me, I'm fine in the moment, but I really need some space before I do it. And so I could not have a red right before that happens. I mean, I could, but it's not ideal. So I would try to make sure I have a little space. And then I also know that even if I'm on a high after something like that, I'm still not able to like sort of calm down to the point where I could do deep focused work. So I'm not going to schedule it, you know, for right after something like that, knowing that it's probably zapped some of my energy. So these are just, these are strategies that you can take with your schedule. And she emphasizes too that, you know, if you have someone who is doing your calendar for you, you should share your strategy with them so that they can also protect that time. I had an amazing admin years ago at Abbott who would do that. I mean, he would look at my calendar and he'd be like, "Hey, Andrea, I think, you know, you really don't have a breather space in between this and this. And, you know, can I protect this 15 minutes, this 20 minutes? And he was fabulous that way. So he was ahead of the curve on this stuff. But, you know, if you have someone who's in control partly of your the professional part of your day, then share this strategy with them. So just to recap, do the energy audit, well, color code your schedule, try to adjust it around the reds, the greens, the oranges, really try to be mindful in the way that you do that, knowing that we're not in control of every aspect of our day. And then share that system with your support network. And it can be, your family, your friends. My husband and I just, that's probably TMI, but we try to get into kind of the infrared thing. So, we have a little closet we've got infrared lights. And so we actually schedule with each other, 8 p.m., 10 minutes in the infrared closet, so people can help you just like they help you with your eating, whatever it is. Anyone who's on board with this, they're going to want to help you because you're going to be a happier person, if you can accomplish this. And I'm not by any stretch saying that I have accomplished all of this. It's just that these are goals and sometimes you need help to get there. So that's my pitch. 2020, we got this, we can do this, and we should do it. So I'm going to stop sharing. And that's all I got. So I'm not going to lecture you the whole time. I just figured since this is a kind of a casual conversation, we could have a conversation around strategies that we think are good, or I don't know, complaints we have about our schedules. Totally open.